Hello, everybody, and welcome to the Home Workers Network, the show that is all about creating an engaged home workers community that shares best practice and leadership so that together we can grow and develop both ourselves and our businesses. I'm joined by Philip Croshaw in Manchester. How are you, Phil?
I'm very well, thank you.
Excellent. Is the weather down there as miserable as it is in the south at the moment?
I think up here you mean, but we won't split hairs.
Down, up, down, shake it all around.
Yeah, it's grey and dull and everything else. But at least I didn't have to get up this morning at 5:30 like my other half and crawl into work through on the M60. So listen, life's good.
Yeah, cool. Okay. And I'm also joined by Marcus Boswell, Mr. Top Tech Tip himself. How are you, fella?
I am good, thank you very much. And yes, we've also been challenged by some ridiculous weather here. This is not my time of year, I might add. This is the time of year that I like to think of myself as one who would hibernate and come out again when it's summertime. But it's been a challenge.
Okay, and you're in Nottingham, aren't you?
I am. I am indeed.
Right. Excellent. Now, for those of you who don't know me, I'm Paul Deach, and although from Salford, I live in Surrey now. I've come up in the world a little bit.
A little bit.
A little bit. So, yeah, I'm in Surrey in a place called Camberley. And today we're going to talk about, and this was, I believe, Marcus's idea, I think, behind this show. Now that you work from home, what about your networking skills, which actually is a really good subject, really, really good subject. And actually, I want you to introduce it, Marcus. I know I'm down to introduce it on the show notes, but I want you to introduce it as it was your idea. So go ahead.
That's fine. Thank you. I'm not looking at the show notes, but I can remember having the emotion that the issue that some people find with working from home often is that, we lack the kind of networking skills and events that we could otherwise be going out to. And I thought it was an interesting idea, to explore with yourselves and the audience just how you're affected by that and whether you either find that you lack the skills maybe to network, that you're kind of, locked into your home base and you like it that way. I think that some people are like that, or otherwise that you just don't find yourself getting out to events where you're going to be in a position to network with other people, and in that way that you could perhaps stunt your growth, if you like, in terms of the people that you've met. So I thought it was an interesting subject, and from my perspective, I know that just in the last week or so, I jumped on Periscope once or twice, mostly as a voyeur, but otherwise just to say hi. And I remember having a few months back really had this kind of stint, as we all did, even those of us that have joined Blab, where we became, fell in love with this new networking platform. And clearly one of the things to happen here is people watch the show, people check out your profile, they go and link with you on Twitter and LinkedIn and other places. And that was my experience with Periscope. It was very kind of, although it was a one-to-many and it was me talking to my phone, it was very different from this experience where you really can interact. I know Phil can relate to this because he appreciates and enjoys this kind of networking atmosphere. So I just thought it was interesting really to look at whether this kind of online, offline networking experience or the online networking experience was one that was either taking off in the right way and something that everybody really appreciates, or whether actually they prefer to continue to seek out offline opportunities to meet and what people are actually doing there. That's kind of the basis of what I was thinking.
Yeah, and last week we were talking about mastermind groups, which you could say in a sense is a form of networking, the way that people get together and discuss ideas and mentorship and all that sort of stuff. So quite an apt subject, I think, and that caused an enormous amount of discussion, those mastermind groups, didn't they?
They did. So, I'm glad actually that this topic follows, because I think, like you say, they are quite closely linked. And I think it's quite important that people think about what they're actually going to get out of networking. And that was one of the other things I thought was quite important about it, and sort of challenging yourselves out there in the audience to maybe fire off some tweets or let us know in the comments via /Q for question. If you've got any questions about the subject. But I think one of the questions I have really is what you currently find useful for networking. What do you do?
Right. Okay. Now, one of the things that comes up over and over again. I mean, we're on episode 6 now with the Homeworkers Network. We did a pilot show as well, so you could say episode 7. And one of the things that comes up over and over again is about isolation when you work from home. It can be quite an isolating experience. And I suppose getting out and making the time to network, and I'm talking about offline networking now, in real networking, as opposed to what we're doing now. I find it actually quite, I need a lot of motivation to go to a networking event. Would you just mute that, Phil, please?
Yeah, no worries.
I really struggle to find the motivation to go to networking events because I find that the sort of offline ones don't really hold my attention, if the truth be told.
I was going to say, is that because you've been to crap ones, or is that?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I've been to some seriously crap ones. Yeah. Yeah. You know, I've been to some good ones as well, don't get me wrong. And there are some, the local authority where I live, the council hold 2 a year in the local theatre, and they're really big ones. And there's always loads and loads of people there. I always make sure I go to those because they're really good networking opportunities. But I suppose when you work from home, it could be quite challenging to find the motivation to get up first thing in the morning, maybe to go to a business breakfast, knowing that you've got to come home and catch up on work. Because, you know, often people who work from home, particularly like me, if they're one-man bands, you know, there's a load of more important things that you need to be doing, if you see what I mean.
Yeah.
Now, what's your experience, Phil?
Crikey. Lots of experience on it, really. When I first started working from home, it's like my own business 11 years ago. Obviously, you've got to get out there and you don't know what the hell you're getting into and what you're doing. So I remember going to a few networking events in the early days. And what I realized quite early on was you've got to pick and choose carefully where you spend your time. I mean, nowadays, time compared with 10 years ago, time is even more precious now. And so, for example, if you're selling £20,000 $20,000 software solutions, there is little point in spending a couple of hours in a room drinking tea and chatting to people who are working in a back bedroom and are a consultant. You know, it's just not your target market. I mean, it's digressing slightly, but it's all that whole thing about target marketing and getting to the right people. So I started to realize that for me personally, things like the Greater Manchester Chamber of Commerce were much more productive because they were the sorts of people I needed to network. They were decision makers as well.
Right.
And they have dinners and things like that. So they're a lot more informal where you can sit down and you have something to eat and you just start to chat to people. And it's very, very relaxed, I guess. I think a lot of it is down to self-confidence. I think that even I'm relatively self-confident, like we all are on here, but even I'm not over keen on the idea of walking in a room where absolutely nobody knows me.
Oh.
Now, I know I look a little bit like Brad Pitt, so that gets me over it in some ways, but it still takes a lot of confidence. The only thing I would say though is that I'm going to kind of question what I've just said there in a sense, in that I've been to 2 networking events that I walked in and I thought this is going to be such a waste of time, and I ended up not with clients from it, but people who do other things that I was then able to introduce clients to, that I was able then to get introduction fees from. And I honestly thought that it was going to be a waste of time. And one particular person has become a very good friend, and since that time has referred business to me. So it's not necessarily a total science. And then I guess the final thing I would say is that, of course, it's all changed now and particularly, I suppose, the online service that jumps out at us all is LinkedIn. And we can do probably a full show just on LinkedIn. But
yeah, I hardly use it. I hardly ever use it, to be honest.
Oh, I noticed, Mr. Deach, because you haven't accepted my friend request.
Have I not? How rude.
But that's okay.
I hardly ever use it. And as a social media consultant, you'd expect me to use it a lot. I do get inquiries through it occasionally. But I don't know. It just doesn't do anything for me, LinkedIn.
I've got a bit to say about this, really. I mean, okay, so LinkedIn, you'll have all perhaps heard me at some point say that, I've got a certain adage where social media platforms is concerned, and it's that LinkedIn is for people that you know or should know, ideally. And we know that we often end up trying to get social proof of 500 initially, so you end up meeting a bunch of people that you don't really know. Facebook tends to be for people that you used to know. And for me, anyway, Twitter is for people that I want to know. I mean, it's just the reality of things, right? So I think the thing about LinkedIn that troubles me and annoys me, actually, is the amount of changes that they are constantly making to that platform. I'm all for innovation. You know me, top tech tips, right? I'm all for innovation. Hey, Chloe, thanks for joining us. But at the end of the day, if they continue to make changes to that platform that are holding people back, or that consistently change the way that, for example, they completely rewrote the way that you deal with messages. No big deal. But if by chance you happen to hit return by accident halfway through a sentence, boom, your message is gone. Now, in a professional environment, that's not cool. The second thing that they've done most recently is quite frustrating, is that they've altered the way that groups work, which in the context of what we're talking about is extremely important, because if you think you're entering a group environment full of people that are interested in a particular subject matter. Now, they were already very cumbersome groups and very, wieldy to find your way around. What do you call them? The administrators often, if you put things on the group, they had so much to deal with, they probably didn't respond. Now, if you contrast that with something like Google Plus, and again, I don't know if you use it, just a quick poll.
I do. Equally frustrating,
yeah,
if the truth be told.
And I agree. I think they've got some work to do for sure. But I think that my experience has been that if I've got some tech problem, and typically it's a tech problem or query, I've thrown something on Google Plus, and I don't yet believe that I have failed to get an answer or several answers in the same day. And that's an extremely different experience from something like LinkedIn, which, when you consider the number of users, I think that's a problem of that platform that they need to solve.
There are rumours though that they might pull Google Plus, aren't there?
Yeah, there's always rumours there, isn't there?
It's a big failure, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's been a failure, Phil, but I think that because of the user interface issues that they have with it, that it's not very user friendly. As such, you tend to attract geeks that use it and that use it regularly. It's geeks, and only those are the people that understand how it works. And I think they need to address that. If they can just make it more simple, they'll win with it, because it's actually a very good social network.
It's highly integrated into everything else that people do. And I mean, look at us. We organise show notes using Google Docs, right? How many people do that? They should far more often. I mean, in a very secret voice, if I could get my guys at work using Google Docs, life would be a lot simpler, right?
Do they use Dropbox, Marcus?
No, because of
I was going to say, because they're going to bring out that functionality very soon. They've got that functionality in beta right now.
Right. I mean, we have an internal Dropbox as such, but it can be very difficult to collaborate. And the same goes for things like Slack and otherwise. But it's the usual kind of huge ocean liner versus kind of the agile boat, right? One moves a lot more slowly and quickly than another. Right.
So when you work from home, it's just as important to network as it is, in the offline space, I suppose. Or if you work for a big company, it's really important that you network. Networking is really important. I think I mentioned in the show last week that my daughter now at school, her school don't refer to playtime as playtime anymore. They refer to it as networking time.
Oh, kidding. They should leave kids alone, man. That's crazy.
I know, actually. Yeah, I kind of tend to agree. But networking is very important, and effective networking is really important. And what I wanted to talk about was about using platforms like this for networking. What are your experiences?
Mine personally are enormous. I think they're great. I mean, case in point, Chloe, who's here in the comments, I have found I've got a great relationship with. We met over Periscope. She's a poster child really for what I'm talking about, right? And this is one of the reasons why I went back onto that platform, because I thought to myself, it would be a real shame to lose this type of connection with somebody who's got a great deal to offer in all kinds of different ways, similar business interests and all that kind of stuff. And I think, just as I like to call it, getting under the hood. I mean, again, same thing with us. Look, we did not know each other 6 months ago.
Well, we still don't. One thing that's interesting about this whole concept, this whole home workers network, is that the three of us and Julian, I've no idea where he is actually. I hope he's all right. He's supposed to be here with us. I've never physically met offline. That this whole show, the concept, the organization behind it is all done online, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it's also interesting as well is that this became like the facilitator for that initial contact and getting to know each other a little bit, but how we've then expanded out then through our various different social medias. So we're now, we're liaising on Slack, we're liaising on LinkedIn, or some of us are
appearing, yeah, as well.
Yeah, appearing. Following each other on Twitter. I know we're on Instagram. I'm following you guys on Instagram.
I was showing my wife your kind of thoughts for the day just yesterday. Ironically, it was quite funny.
They do make me laugh. Some of them.
They're awesome.
You know what I would like to see? I'd like to see what's his name, the idiot abroad. What's he called? Carl Pilkington. I'd like to see Carl Pilkington do a daily thoughts of the day on Instagram. That would be brilliant.
It would.
But that's networking, though. What you're doing there is networking, absolutely. Even though it's not networking in the traditional sense. You're getting your thoughts out there. Using that platform and doing it, I would say, quite innovatively.
I think so too. I think it's tremendously important, actually, because, again, my wife, she's a lawyer. We were having this discussion and she's got this kind of, what is professional versus what isn't professional. And ultimately, it's kind of an old school mentality. Not that I express it quite like that when talking about it with her. But, the view is it's one of those situations where something like this very quickly puts you in front of a much wider audience than you would have otherwise have had. And if you're in a position to share your knowledge in a certain area that they don't have, or indeed ask for some sort of knowledge back, then to me, that's a win all day long. I think I must find this quote in pocket somewhere, but I read somewhere that there was a particular scientist who said, there's nothing more important in life than relationships. And much as I wanted to challenge that in my head, thinking, oh, don't be stupid, there's got to be more important things than that, I thought, well, actually, that is the fix for pretty much everything if you think about it, right? I mean, if you know the right people, you're fixed in all kinds of different ways. You can reach out when you need to. So I think networking is tremendously important.
Okay, now we've got a question. We've got a question from the audience. Is it advisable to focus on just one or at the most two platforms rather than being active on each one? I suppose it depends, really. I don't know how to pronounce your name there, so I'm not even going to attempt to. But
it's
I suppose
Dharmendra. I know somebody like that, yeah.
Oh, look who's joined us. Flipping heck.
Sorry, don't lose track of that question because it's an important.
No. Stick with it.
Got distracted by Jenko joining us. But yeah, I suppose it really depends on what you want to get from it, really.
Yeah, right.
Yes, I suppose you can spread yourself a bit thin and dilute your message by pushing it out across too many different platforms. But at the same time, if you're comfortable doing that, I mean, some people I've seen on Blab who are very active on Blab are also on Periscope. They're on Instagram. They're on Twitter. They're on Facebook. They're on LinkedIn. Actually, I'm on all those platforms. I'm more active on some than others, to be fair. But that's what works for me. And really, for me, it's about engagement. So if I get a lot of engagement on LinkedIn, then you'll see me more on it. It's that simple.
I think the thing is, though, it's like chicken and egg, because in order to get more engagement, you have to show up on it, and have conversations. I mean, I had a discussion just this morning about Slack, ironically, because of a post that I put up, like in my mind, a few weeks ago that went live because of something I'll tell you about during our top tip later. And, I got some engagement from a chap who I have met in a networking capacity, never met physically, but met him on LinkedIn. And again, he has a very, very strong presence over in Google+. So to answer your question, again, Dharmendra, I think we said.
Dharmendra, yeah.
To answer your question, I believe that it is important to understand what you want from each of those platforms. Okay, so for me, again, I'm not going on Twitter to sit down and have long-winded conversations all day long, but it is most certainly somewhere that I rely on for sort of up-to-date news, subjects that I've collated really and aggregated in very specific ways. Whereas, again, I don't spend a huge amount of time on LinkedIn, but I think that it's an important platform for scoping and structuring your professional relationships, and for also, like I said, getting under the hood. I will go have a look at somebody's profile, see how they have structured what they want to say. Because again, one of the most important things for me about this platform, or in terms of social media and LinkedIn particularly, is, hey, Saad, nice of you to join us. You tell people how you want to be viewed, and you have complete control over that, which is not necessarily the case with all social networks. Sometimes you fall into a structure, but with that one, you get to paint the picture as to what you want people to understand about your summary, what you want people to know about your key skills, So I think people are missing a trick really in taking that to its 7th degree and really using that well.
Right. Okay.
I think it's also just to add to that. I also think we forget very quickly about the difference that sites like LinkedIn have made. I mean, I'm old enough to remember where the only chance of getting hold of anybody at a reasonable senior level was via the telephone, and you had 46 layers of protectors trying to stop you getting hold of gatekeepers and classics. Yeah. And the younger people will think, what the hell is he on about? But that's how it was. So the fact that you can almost identify just about within reason anybody, and if you're clever with the creative and don't go in there trying to get them to do stuff for you in 5 seconds, get to know them, get to engage them a little bit, then that is an amazing tool which can revolutionize a business.
Yeah, absolutely. Now, I'll tell you what, we'll move on to the next bit, and then Julian can... welcome, Julian, by the way. Thanks for joining us.
How are we?
All good, all good. Now, we'll move on to the next bit, and then you sort of follow the flow of what we're talking about, which is, do any of us regularly attend regular meetups, so regular networking events, that type of thing? I don't, to be fair, because I enjoy my bed too much, and a lot of these things tend to be around early morning. But what about you guys? Julian, we'll start with you, fella.
Many years ago, when I was a little bit younger, they used to call me Tara Palmer Jenkins, because I'd attend the opening of an envelope. So I was a bit of a socialite. Hence the reason my body is no longer a temple.
Not a temple. Yeah.
Absolutely. But those days are long gone now, and thank the Lord. But no, seriously, I used to do a lot of networking. I don't do so much networking now. I'm really sort of picky and choosy in terms of where I go, what I do, and who I'm with. And yes, because of my position here in Cardiff, I was obviously the commercial director. I was a director of the football club in the town, so I know of, or they know of me. Of a lot of things, so I was getting a lot of invites to go places, but I don't do that so much anymore. For me, in terms of networking now, it is strategic conferences or strategic places, etc. Or if a mate says to me, "Jude, do us a favor, will you come here and say something, or will you do a talk or whatever?" Then of course, I'll go and help out wherever. But for me, it is more. It's a lot more strategic, and even to that point here on Blab, I'll only go into rooms or take a seat on ones that I think that A, I can offer value to, and B, that I know anything about. There's obviously a lot of social butterflies, should we say, at the moment, who are floating around many different flowers, but that's not me. So I am picky and choosy. But yeah, I think it's important to get out there, but I think you've got to be seen in the right places at the right time, I think.
And are you finding, Julian? I was saying this off air earlier. Are you finding with Blab, and a good networking case in point, really, to talk about, as that we're on that platform right now, and we've had 32 people fly through this. When I started on Blab, I found it to be very addictive, but I found the same with Google Hangouts on Air, and I was doing a lot of networking on that when I first discovered it. But then I kind of got bored because a lot of the discussions tended to be around either marketing or sales evangelism, or atheists versus believers. So there was no middle ground. Yeah. I'm finding the same with Blab, and as such, getting a little bit bored of some. And like you now, very picky. I would go into any Blab when I first discovered the platform because I was hungry to find out more about it. But now I'm actually finding myself going. In fact, Sard from the Tech Blab is here.
Exactly the same thing.
Sard from the Tech Blab is here right now. Is the only Blab I watch regularly.
Absolutely, me too. It's the only one that's in my diary for the days that it will be. Which, by the way,
I have to say, I have to counter that, guys, because Charlene is also in the room.
Charlene, I miss Charlene.
Charlene's Blabs are absolutely fantastic, on the money, and she has that innate ability to do what she just did in the comment section, was to take something I just said and turn it into what potentially could be a fantastic quote: "Social butterflies landing on any flower. Business butterflies landing on flowers they can help grow." That's just fantastic.
Profound, very profound.
Yeah, very profound. I forgot the question now. But anyway.
No, but are you fun? Because I think that you and I are all liking that we are doing really, other than sort of some of the more sort of strategic conferences and those type of things.
Okay.
About really, the only networking I'm doing is online. But I'm finding less and less useful for that at the moment.
I think the thing is with anything, whenever you start with anything, there's that realm of excitement, the realm of intrigue, the realm of all these different bits and pieces, and that obviously sort of quashes depending on how much time you spend on certain things, I never went on Google Hangouts, so I'm finding some of these rooms very interesting, but that interesting is just people watching and novelties. When you've got, I joke I'm an atheist, thank God. But I am very religious and spiritual, but I think it's a good joke. But no, I see these rooms, I go in and have a look and sort of wander around, etc. But it's, I think any platform will be a snapshot. I could say this: any platform will be a snapshot of society, and that snapshot of society will come through in any form, whether that's Facebook, etc.
That said, though. 1 minute, Marcus. Sorry, mate. What that said, I have made some incredible connections via this platform. For instance,
there's 3 people in this room.
I was just going to say, for instance, you three. I consider you guys friends now, and I'm certain that we'll all be lifelong friends, even though we've never met in real time. Although I think that's only a matter of time before that happens. I've learned so much, and that's one of the things from the networking I do on Blab is that I learn an enormous amount, like from people like Charlene, like from Sard from the Tech Blab, and you guys, just incredible from learning things point of view. So that doesn't have to be networking. Doesn't have to be about getting business. It can just be about learning, can't it?
It can, yeah. Yeah, for sure. And I think that's one of the important things about what you were saying. For me, it's not just having the online experience, but it's taking it offline. And I think that's where it's become powerful as well. It's reaching out beyond the platform that you're necessarily in and taking it across to Facebook, where you might find somebody as well, and having the odd Twitter discussion with somebody, offline. And it's just about getting a little bit, again, I've said it a couple of times already, it feels like the right thing to say, but getting under the hood for me once again. It's about kind of figuring out what is it that makes somebody tick? How can I help? We hear a lot, in social media terms where we talk about added value, like and trust, and what can we do? And we're not all kind of these gushy, beautiful creatures that completely want to help everybody all of the time. Some of us we have that innate skill. But actually, for me, I'm just hyper curious more than anything else. I like to know. If I go to the dentist, I want to know exactly what the dude is doing, right? If I've got my car fixed, I'm standing over him going, "Oh, what does that do then?" I want to know I want to know everything. That's how I am.
Actually, when I go to the dentist, I don't want to know what they're doing. To such a degree, they have to knock me out, even just for a filling. But anyway, that's another story.
You were making an interesting point there. Just quickly, Julian was talking about the networks, and again tonight or this afternoon, in fact, on Tech Blab, I know that I might be wrong about the subject matter, but I think they were talking about Snapchat. Now, there's a networking opportunity that I haven't got my head around. I'm not suggesting we get into a big debate about it, but I struggle with that concept, and I know that that's one that's picking up in a big way for some people. So go check it out.
Cool. Hey, Charlene, how are you?
Good morning, gentlemen. Doing well. Good afternoon, good evening, wherever you might be, right? As Julian said.
Excellent. Now, I would like to ask you what your experiences are with networking. I assume you work from home.
I do.
How do you network, Charlene?
I had to learn. And what I did was I went around and got connected to a couple of the most connected people in town. And I was with Toastmasters. The combination taught me how to actually network in business settings. And really what it is leaving the business card aside until someone asks for it. So that the initial conversation is, who are you? What is it that you do? Why do you do what you do? And hope that they ask me the same thing, which they always do. And to determine if this is somebody that I want in my circle. I mean, that's just as quick and dirty as we can get it. And then I was taught the nice way to do it. And I do attend a weekly networking. It is a networking meeting. It's not a referral club. It is a salesman's club in town, been around almost 100 years. And the reason I attend it is because it is filled with like-minded people. They're all about getting to know you, socializing, wanting to know who are you, and then gently walking away if they determine that you're really not their cup of tea, but it's okay because you're somebody else's cup of tea, and then doing business with you or referring business after they've gotten to know you. But it also gets me out of the house.
Right.
Which is really important. Really important. Yeah. You got to be out in the world. So I do that on purpose.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. I mean, the thing is I say I don't go to many networking events these days, which is true. But a lot of my work is out in the field. So
you're out anyway.
I'm out anyway. And by default, I'm networking with my clients and their clients and their staff and so on.
Now, I can also say that you are in your environment and your normal working environment when you're out networking. You just don't view it as networking, as you've described. Whereas I'm purposefully putting myself out there in a business setting so that I can always be reminded that that's what I'm here to do. Because we can fall into, when we're online too much, we can fall into the rabbit hole of everything being social and fun and getting to know each other. And I'm much more like Julian. I'm not just to sit and talk for the sake of sitting and talking. It doesn't make sense to me. But, and I don't have much to offer in that realm. But if I'm somewhere on purpose, like here, I jumped in because I thought I could have something to offer. Or when I'm called into a room, I'll come in because obviously they think I have something to offer. But otherwise, I drop by to see if there's anything that's of use to me or I can be of use to somebody else, and then I move on if not. Yeah. But we can get lost, and I've seen people too many times, doesn't matter the age, get lost in the spreading themselves out over everywhere so that everybody can see me, as if they think everybody really wants to, and then wondering why they're not making any connections and building their business.
That brings up an interesting question, actually, from my perspective. So, a few. Do you regularly attend meetups in order to network with people? And before you answer that, what are you actually looking for from that networking opportunity? And I think that's the thing that people really need to kind of focus on. What are they actually looking to get out of that process?
I go places on purpose. It is that simple. That's how I work. That's how I've always been. That's why I've never been the social butterfly. I watch my mother and my husband, and I'm just in awe. You just give them a social setting, they blossom, they're all over the place. By the time the evening's done, I can ask my husband and he will be able to tell me everybody's name, their spouse, the number of children that they have, what they do with those children on the weekend, where they go on vacation, why they go. And I'm like,
the consummate networker then. The consummate networker.
He's the consummate socializer.
Right. And that's
now what that means is he had to learn how to refine the way that he talked to people, the way I talk to people. It was like, two extremes, because I'm going to talk to you and there's a purpose in my talking to you.
But there's talking, and clearly what your husband does very well is listen, because He doesn't. If he can remember their names and how many kids they've got and all those sorts of things, he might not listen to you, Charlene.
Thank you. All right, fine. I was outed there.
That's a husband's prerogative.
We need to change the title of this show, I think.
No. We'll just leave it be, Julian.
but one thing that I would like to bring. One thing that I would like to bring up, though, and this is in the show notes that Marcus has kindly typed up here about examples of networking experience with clubs and societies. And that's very interesting because I consider myself to be a community-spirited kind of guy. That's what makes me tick, is the community that I live in. I'm an elected representative at our local council. I attend many local community events and that type of thing. And what I've actually found inadvertently is that they are sometimes some of the best networking opportunities from a business point of view. Because when you meet people in a social environment where there's no expectation to do business, that's when you can make some of your best connections, wouldn't you say?
Yes and no, from my perspective. As I was just saying in the comments, we're all global players now. This is the interesting thing. Whereabouts are you based, Charlene? It's not in the UK.
I'm in the Louisville, Kentucky area.
There you go, right? So
if you ever come down for the race, Kentucky Derby.
There's no question, right? I've definitely met some people who I can guarantee you there are several places I would have to go now if I went anywhere near New York City. There are several places across the States where I would have to go and stop in and say hi to people. And that, I mean, these are not sort of vacuous relationships. They are based on the beginnings of something that could be great, purely because, you know, we're all getting a little bit closer to what we're doing. Now, some of us are very focused on business. There's no question. You know, in my role within what I do, I'm helping our sales associates really to understand the processes that surround social selling, for example. And yet that's very much aside from the business of the larger organization in terms of HR and payroll, in terms of what we do. And yet, you know, when you contrast that with what all of you guys are doing, the one true constant is that we all have to have networking skills in order to make those relationships happen, in order to get that sale, or in order to advance that, you know, position wherever that is. I mean, you said it yourself, Charlene, you know, you're focused on
I'm here for a reason.
Exactly.
I'm here for a reason. Don't misunderstand that my reason is always for business.
Yeah, there is that.
I'm just saying that there's the way the way I've always been is that I will join a conversation because there is a reason for me to be there. I will speak because there's a reason for me to speak, but I am not one to just, like, again, the opposites. I can watch my husband. You put him in a crowd of people, and before you know it, he's the one that's gotten everybody all excited, and he's the one talking, and I'm the one shutting him out. He knows that. And it doesn't, I don't do that. I'm not the initiator. I'm not the, in general, in a social setting, I look and I see what value is there for me. What value can I bring to you? I see nothing, so I say nothing, and then I walk away. But if I see that there's value on either side, I'll stop and I'll see what, you know, I'm in there for a reason. In this case, there's multiple reasons. I like all of you guys. I love what you're talking about. It's something I can bring a little bit of my own experience to, but I can also learn from you. Right? I'm learning more about you on a personal level, which happens, you know, that's a wonderful side effect, if you will.
Well, that can be useful, though. That can be useful.
It's always
later.
Useful. But the thing is that the other reason is that, and I'm saying this because you brought up social selling, Marcus, because I've been teaching it since 2008. And that's actually where I excel, is online. And it's because I know how to nurture the relationships. And this is part of it. It's showing up where the people that are in my circle that I respect and admire and want those relationships, I need to show up. You know, so I initially determined upon meeting all of you that I really, really liked who you are, what you represent, what you're saying. It aligns. I can, you know, I can talk woo-woo stuff, or I can just simply say, I like what you guys are saying, right? And I can get it.
Well,
and I can
appreciate you too, for sure.
Well, I appreciate that. And so knowing all that, right, here's an opportunity for me to nurture those relationships by participating, but also to provide support, to be in the comment section and give you props, to let other people know that, you know, these are good guys and gals out here, that there's people out on the side that are paying attention.
Right.
So that's part of all of the strategy, if you will, behind social media, to pull it out of the relationship part, if you will. So, doing it on purpose.
And it's interesting to delve a little bit deeper into the way that you network, which is what you're doing right now. It's really good to see. You're clearly a very good operator when it comes to networking. Charlene, thank you for your contribution. Really do appreciate it.
I'm going to go take over my own show, and I'll be seeing you guys again soon.
Absolutely. I'll be subscribing to your shows. So thank you for joining us. Really do appreciate it.
Cheers, Charlene.
Yeah. Now, what I would like to do, that's always great contributions from Charlene. It's always great to have her on the show.
Phil finished dictating now, is he?
Yeah, I think so. What about your experiences? I mentioned about the clubs, societies, and networking without the sort of intention of networking for business, just in a social setting. And do you find that useful for getting a business point of view, sort of inadvertently, subliminally, let's say?
Who are you asking?
All of you. Start with Phil, as that is back in, because you strike me as a kind of social creature, Phil.
No, I'm not really, actually.
Are you not? Right.
No, it's interesting that perceptions are interesting, aren't they? No, I'm not particularly. I hate parties, which I know is a different kind of conversation.
What? And you're from Manchester, and you don't like?
No, well, yeah. Let me rephrase that. Nowadays, I hate parties as I've got older, and I think what it is, and I'm going to lay out my soul here. I struggle to communicate with people who don't stimulate me, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. If I'm ever at a dinner and I end up to somebody who's has got nothing to say, nothing interesting to say, not got opinions, I'm bored out my skull in 5 minutes, less. I know it sounds awful, and I'll probably never get to heaven, but I just value time so much, and if I'm not getting value from that time with people, so parties, especially family parties, you really, unless you're quite fortunate, you end up talking, I won't swear, but you end up talking about nothing.
Small talk.
Yeah, but the thing is, though, Phil, I thought the conversation you and I had on Skype last night about Dici was going to stay between ourselves. I didn't think you were going to broadcast it live on this.
I said I wouldn't record it, and I didn't.
Right. You didn't mention any names.
Yeah, so I'm a bit like Charlene, actually, in the context of the fact that I am always looking for the business angle, unless, of course, I'm learning something. So I do get social enjoyment, but there's a question, really, and I just wonder what you guys thought. But we're at a moment in time now where online and social media is everything to the younger end, arguably. So we've been brought up at a time when we had to develop social skills, where we had to go into a room and we had to be able to talk to people and discuss people and relate to people, even people we didn't necessarily overly like in a lot of the cases, especially if you're employed and with your boss and all that kind of shenanigans.
Well, I'm going to give you something, Phil, in the top tips section of this show. Something to help you develop your social media networking.
Oh, it's very kind of you.
And we'll keep you in with all the cool kids.
Well, the reason I raised it is the 15 and 16-year-olds of today. I sometimes wonder, and it's a question, to what degree will they have the necessary face-to-face interpersonal skills
Look at this.
that are still necessary in order to get on and achieve stuff?
I think school.
If we catapulted into the future in 20 years, would we see 90% or more of networking done on here? Question.
I can only talk about my experience. See, I have an 8-year-old, nearly 9-year-old daughter. And, I obviously play a very active part in her life and the schooling and all that sort of stuff. And, these days at school, which they never used to do when I was at school, I assume we're all of a similar age. I think Marcus might be a bit younger than the rest of us, but we're all of a similar age. And, at school these days, they teach kids to be confident. the thought of public speaking until recent years absolutely terrified me. But my daughter, who can be quite shy, doesn't have a problem getting up on stage and performing, giving speeches, all that sort of stuff. They don't bat an eyelid at it, and I think that it's just the age that the age we're living in now. Kids are taught to network. They do it naturally, whether it be offline or online.
But don't we think as well, though, that people still buy people ultimately? I can meet loads of people online, but ultimately the time the deal is done, it's when I'm sat in front of them having a coffee and a chat, and whether they like me and buy into what I'm saying.
Right.
But aren't we, again, you know, we can chuck technology layers on there. We can throw really fancy words, and we can pontificate over what things we're talking about. But aren't we just basic humans? Aren't we just social animals anyway? Aren't we, you know, haven't we just want to, you know, I think if we were all loners, we wouldn't be where we are today in terms of the race. You know, the reason why we've succeeded is because we do communicate with each other. We work together. We try and solve problems, and we learn, and we do all these different bits and pieces. And that comes through social interaction and social engagement. And I think that, you know, there's people who likes more social engagement than others, and there's people who, you know, who probably do too much social engagement. But for me, I always try and strip things back to basic human needs. And basic human needs, you know, is about self-esteem. It's about interaction. It's about engagement. It's about the feeling of belonging. It's the feeling of belief. It's security. It's all of these different things. And again, you know, not to touch upon it, but I think, you know, it obviously this is the first show we've had since what happened in Paris. But, you know, what really shakes us is when you look at our social human needs, there's so many of those Maslow's hierarchy of needs get smashed to pieces when you see something happening in terrorism, whether that's safety, whether that's engagement, whether that's togetherness, belonging, or all of those basic human needs you're being eroded by, you know, by some people who, unfortunately, I don't really want to spend too much time because they're oxygen thieves. But, you know, it is that type of thing, and social and networking and all of these different bits and pieces, for me, just come back to being human and me wanting to talk to guys and learn from people. And, you know, for me, I listen to everybody so I can form a multi-viewed educational approach in terms of I've got my own strands of my thought processing, and, you know, I try and do that, but I'm always listening. I'm always trying to, you know, pick the bones out of whatever it is to be able to put it together to how I see it. And that's just education, and education is the key for me to everything. And, you know, if you're always learning. Yeah, if you're not looking in education, you're looking in ignorance. And again, going back to a lot of these, unfortunately, these people purport to be, you know, of a certain religion, which is absolute bullshit. It's just ignorance. So, you know, that's where we are. Okay,
well, thanks for that, Julian. I think this is a subject we could probably talk for hours about. We really could, but we are pressed by time. So let's move on to the next segment, which is one of my favorite segments of the show, I have to say, and that's Top Tech Tips. Marcus, over to you, my man.
Well, today I'm going to keep it simple. You know, on the networking front, I was blown away, and Sard will know this. I'm not going to steal this one. A chap on the show, Michael, who some of you guys will know, was involved in some graphic design work and stuff, and he dropped a networking one just recently, which I'll probably share next week when I've tested it out a little bit more and can tell you more about it. But today I wanted to just reflect on Buffer. For those of you who aren't using it, I know that Phil only recently heard of it, which surprised me greatly. But
haven't you already done a top tech tip on Buffer?
No, we talked about it.
You haven't. You talked about it loosely. So just remind us again what it's all about.
Yeah, short version is Buffer is a social sharing platform. And the reason why I want to mention it today is because there's been a significant change to Buffer, which makes it a much more useful tool for many of us. And that is the addition of the calendar feature to Buffer. So what Buffer allows you to do is choose a headline from the address bar, for example, click on a button if you've got it baked into Chrome, and then share a social message across whatever social platforms you're connected to. In my case, LinkedIn, Twitter, Facebook, whatever. But the crucial thing about this, if you don't already know, is that it allows you to schedule those posts to go off at different times, and also to change that social messaging, which makes it pretty cool. So the additional feature, which I wanted to just quickly share about this, was the fact that now you can physically see in a calendar format, which is pretty useful, actually what's happening and what messages are being sent and shared during the course of the month, and you can move those around as you like. So I think that's a really top tech tip and a really nice change that Buffer have introduced. So fair play to them.
Yeah, and thank you for introducing me to Buffer. I'm starting to use it, not as much as I should.
See the look of shock on my face still? I thought you guys were down with Buffer.
No, so I am using it, but I'm just getting my head around it at the moment. But I can really see its value. It is fantastic. And I noticed on my tech feed, I have an RSS feed into some of the technology blogs and so on. And there's a big excitement about that new calendar integration. So yeah, yeah, absolutely.
And I'm really glad Marcus's top tech tip this week has cost me nothing.
Yes, and it
makes a change, doesn't it?
It is free. It doesn't have to be, and mine isn't free because I like to add a little bit of extra functionality to it, so you can have a premium service. But
absolutely, I have to I have to go and visit my bank manager every week before the show because Marcus always costs me money.
Well, Phil's cost me because I've been on Udemy all week trying to catch up. And just one little note for you guys: it will be wrong of me not to mention this, but I believe today is the last day for the whole. The Black Friday, resent the term, but anyway, that whole vibe that's going on there, you can get all of your lessons and so forth quite cheaply. So I've gone on a mad kind of £8 binge for a lot of the types of courses that I've been wanting to follow, and it's been really good.
I want to touch upon that actually. One of the reasons why I'm not using Udemy is they absolutely keep devaluing the product by giving far too many discounts away. Is just what I thought. And if I was going to do any consultancy work with Udemy, I would tell them that your product is either worth the price it's doing or it's not. So stop discounting. But anyway, that's another thing. Do you want me to give you my top tech tip today?
Yeah, absolutely. But before you do, on Udemy, I'm a big fan of lynda.com. I use Lynda a lot, and but anyway, maybe that's because I just fancy her. I don't know. But anyway, go on, Julian.
My top tech tip today is Upwork. Upwork is a site whereby you can post jobs, and we need to do a topic on this actually because I think it's very pertinent to a home workers network because it gives you resource. You can post jobs for any jobs that you want to do or you haven't got time to do, and there will be people all over the world who will say, "I'll do that for you at a set price." And some of the people I have found on there have been absolutely fantastic. And in fact, I've been whittling my little dream team down now to about 4 people who I can constantly call on. And I know their work is of a superb standard, and they can add massive value to what I'm trying to do for a fraction of the cost if I wanted to do it somewhere else. So
Julian, was it?
Upwork, yeah. It used to be as I think it's Steve. I think he was sort of it used to be Odesk, and it's really easy to use. You go on there, you post your job, and then people say, "Well, I can help you or not." It does. I think the key to using it successfully is really sort of whittling it down, because you'll have a lot of people who say they can do lots of things, but ultimately they can't. So it is a case of actually it's like job interviewing people. But Upwork is a very, very good site if you want to do things efficiently and effectively.
So what about just if we can just delve a little bit deeper into that, Julian? One thing I would be nervous about would be like quality control, and how do you know if you're going to take someone on whether they're going to be any good?
It's very simple.
Do you pay them before you start or after? How does it work?
No, very, very simple. What I do, if anyone wants to work with me, they have to provide me an example of the work that I'm looking for. Ideally, an example of the work I'm looking for in terms of the draft. So for instance, I'm putting together a course on my site at the moment. And I'm looking to get somebody to design that course for me. And I've had 3 or 4 people tender for it. And I ended up going back to the woman I used for the first time ages ago. And she's from the Ukraine. And she's done a marvelous product for me. I think it's fantastic. It's on the money. And it's cost me a fraction of the cost what it would do to go somewhere else. So there is, I would say you've got to be careful. There is a process to it. you need to be whittling down. And anybody who says, can you pay me before I start, I don't talk to them again. And it is a case of building trust, but you can set milestones. So you can say, for instance, I'm making a promo video at the moment, an animation promo video, and the guy is, I'm split it into 3 phases. Once he's given me the storyboard, I will give him first phase. Then when we get halfway through the animation, I'll give him second phase. Then when he's finished the animation, I'll give him third phase. So there is there's a mile, and you can set those milestones within the platform as well. So it's a really good platform for you to try and build your little dream team around you. And it's very, very, very cost effective.
Lovely. Okay, Julian, thanks for that. That's a good tip. And actually, I'm going to check that out as soon as we finish this.
But I think we should do a show about virtual assistants. I think
okay.
I think there's a whole topic in it.
Yeah, we can do that. Okay, thanks for that. Phil?
I'm conscious running out of time, but it's interesting. We've been talking about Udemy and Lynda. One I came across recently, which I'm just doing a 2-week trial on, but I really like it, is called Skillshare.com. And it is pretty much what it says on the tin. You get to watch a video course. There's a 2-week trial free, and then it's about $10 a month, about £8, £7, I guess, if you're in the UK. And I've really liked that. You can, a bit like Spotify, you can download the actual files and watch them offline as you wish. You can, and I kind of carry it around on my iPad, listen to it in the car, and so on and so forth. But it's Skillshare.com. I'm still on a trial mode, but worth a trial as it's free. And check it out and see what you think. The other great thing about it is for us people who can't like to stick our faces on, you can obviously upload your own courses. So that might be of interest to you, Jenko. I know you do quite a bit of that kind of thing. And you can record and upload your own courses on there as well.
Brilliant. Okay, Phil. Thanks for that. Appreciate it. So my top tech tip for this week is these. They're called Olo clips.
Oh, okay. Got a lot of them, haven't you?
I've got every one. Actually, I've got other ones as well, but these are the ones that I use the most. Now, Olo clips are, for those that don't know, it's a lens system that literally, and I'll demonstrate it for you right now. It's a lens system for your iPhone. Okay. Now, Phil was saying earlier about young people and how they use social media and all the rest of it. Well, I love Instagram. That is my social network of choice. And if anyone who follows me on Instagram, at Dici, I'll put that in the comments there, at Dici, you'll see that I post to it almost every day. And actually, my whole work is around content production. So although I'm a social media consultant, I very much focus on content for my clients to populate their social media with. And a picture speaks 1,000 words. You can say a lot with a picture. And if your pictures are good quality, you know, they're going to get much more traction. So what these lenses do is give you far more creative options with your iPhone. And essentially, you could say turns your phone into almost like a DSLR. So this lens here is the active lens made by Oloclip. Just go to oloclip.com. And on there you have 2 lenses. One is an ultra wide angle lens, which gives you the effect of like a GoPro. I don't know if you've ever seen images taken with a GoPro, but that lens gives you that. And if you flip it round, you also have a telephoto lens, because the digital zoom on iPhones are not great. You know, they do degrade the image when you digitally zoom in. So that gives you more zoom, analog zoom. And then there's the other lens that I use, which is a 4-in-1 lens. Actually, there's 4 lenses on that, because when you unscrew these ones, you get macro lenses. And if you don't know, in photography, macro photography is close up, almost at microscopic level. So if you've ever seen pictures of, I don't know, pollen or whatever in flower heads, that's how they get those effects. And also on there, you've got a wide angle lens and a fisheye lens. And that's my top tech tip. So if you want to get serious about your photography, mobile photography, these are the things. They're not that cheap, really. It's 70 quid a pop. But it will really make your images stand out, particularly if you want to use them for work. I mean, these are really a daily part, you know, a part of my daily workflow. And, you know, you can use the images on your website, on your marketing and all that sort of stuff without having to buy an expensive phone.
So I peaked too soon when I said top tech tips weren't going to cost anything this week. I'm happy with Mark's. I'm happy with Marcus's 5.50 downloadable app, to be honest.
Well, I'll tell you what I'll do, because the owner
you'll send me a free copy.
The owner of Holoclip, he's a good mate of mine.
Here we go. Now we're getting to the bottom of this.
No. I was a customer before I became a mate.
I am curious. Did you take that picture in the comment section? I mean, don't leave the show, guys, but click on that a little later and take a look. I'm curious about whether that picture was taken with your Holoclip, because that's a really sharp picture. It's pretty good.
That was taken with the ultra wide. Yeah. You need an ultra wide with my head. But just to answer that conflict of interest there, Julian. I was a customer of Holoclip. This is how good their customer service is. I was a customer of Holoclip before I became friends with the chief executive officer.
To me.
No. I just want to because this is actually an interesting story. Because what happened is I was at an event that I was covering, and I dropped one of my lenses and it smashed. So I took a macro shot with the unbroken part of the lens of the smashed up lens and posted it on my Instagram account and tagged in Holoclip. I got an email from them the next day to say, "We noticed you've smashed your lens.
No way.
We'd like to send you a new one."
Any chance? If you still got that smashed lens, you can send to me and I can take a picture of it.
I do. What's that say on there? What's he putting on there?
Is that
any
final questions? Excellent. Yes. So swiftly moving along. Yes. Are there any final questions from the audience? What app is that? What app is that? You covered this, haven't you? I bought this on your recommendation.
This is a fantastic app, which I've just lost. It's called LED-IT. LED-IT. You'll find that on the App Store. A few quid. Saved my bacon many a time, Sard, I can tell you. Very good.
There's also an Android version as well, which I found for my Samsung, because I know there's one or two people who are
there you go.
Android users.
Somebody asked about whether you Droid users were in the audience, so Phil's a Droid person.
And there's a Scouse version called LEG-IT.
That really brings us to the close of the show. Thank you so much, everybody, for joining us. Really do appreciate it. Do stick around for the after show. I'll be sticking around for at least 5-10 minutes. I hope you guys can too. And make sure you join us again next week. I'm not going to be able to, if we're doing the show on Thursday, I'm not going to be able to be on the show because I'm going overseas on business. We may bring the show forward. We'll discuss that later to see if we can all get together. But once again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you, Phil, Julian, and Marcus.
Pleasure.
Cheers, guys.
Cheers.
Thank you.